Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.
Scott, man, thank you for being here.
Glad to be here. Man, this is a cool looking place.
Thank you.
Are we going to do a split camera? I want to be like in a Steve McQueen movie.
That's a first. So we're it's now February 2021. We're in the pandemic still. Live music has certainly been turned up on it upside down on its head the last year. And, you know, live music is a big part, not everything, but a big part of the work that you do. So how are you personally maneuvering all this?
I'm as sad as everyone else, but I've had a lot to write about because there's been so many bands that are finding new ways to get it out there. I think how a lot of bands started streaming last April, and it was really amateurs. It was a guy sitting in his basement wearing a flannel shirt, you know. Then now we're seeing things like the SOS Save Our Stages and some of the other bands. This weekend we have Todd Rundgren doing a show, his tour. He'll be pretending like he's in Pittsburgh. The visuals behind him will be showing Pittsburgh scenery. So bands are finding a way to get more creative with what we're dealt with right now. So I've had a lot to write about. But yeah, like everyone else, I'm missing the sound of that kick drum going through your chest. You know, I need to be back out there soon. We're heading that way. I think we're at the right pace, but I can't wait. On
the virtual stuff that you've seen, have there been any standouts that you've been able to catch? Glimpses of these video shows that some really have been like a cut above in terms of the way it was thought out, produced, and so forth. Because I have seen a lot of rubbish too. I cheer on the effort. But it seemed like a lot of your bigger acts gave it a shot in the beginning and either didn't like it or whatever their negativity toward was, and they just quit.
Yeah.
But the ones that plowed through, it seemed like it got better.
I'm real curious that we got Dropkick Murphys just announced they're doing their St. Patrick's Day again, and I watched some of last year's, and it was cool, it was fun, but I wasn't getting the experience of a DM.
You have to be there.
Virtually someone needs to be like throwing a bottle at your head or something.
You have to be there.
But they've had a whole year to figure it out now, so to me this is going to be a good gauge on how they've advanced and how the industry is advanced in streaming. I mean, some of the local ones, a guy like Joel Lindsay I'm a big fan of, and he just literally puts like a curtain up and he does fun things, but he'll bring his son in, and I don't mind some of the low budget ones. They're kind of cool, but a band of a national stature should be doing something a little fancier.
Did you see Kiss did that January 1st thing? Did you catch any of that?
From Dubai, I did not. How was that?
It was okay. It was, once you see a modern Kiss show, you've seen it a billion times. But what they did was really weird and also cool. They just blew everything up. They just blew everything imaginable. They just pumped fireworks into the sky, and that was all cool. But it was different seeing them play with like a casino fountain in the background, and then like really just tables, like cocktail tables, spread out, and then all the fans, I guess, were in the hotels on their balcony. Yeah, and then I don't know what the revenue was. I don't know what the reach was, but at least if it was live, full production, full scale music.
They vowed to set a Guinness record for the most pyrotechnical stuff.
I would imagine they probably did it. It just went on and on and on. Which, but again,
your move, Zambelli. What do you got?
And you have to beat that. But then again, you had oil money over there too. You had some oil baron probably funding the whole thing. But at least it was some normalcy. Right. For whether you dig Kiss or not, if you like rock and roll, at least there's a major act doing something on a big scale. Although it didn't feel, and that's the thing about music. It's so, and I know that this word is overused, organic, but it is an organic experience when you attend an event, and there's just that intangible thing that doesn't translate to television. Would you agree?
Yeah, I definitely do. I know it's so hard. It's like 7 degrees outside now, but March is coming up, and I'm already getting announcements from Beaver County venues. At least they're going to be doing some outdoor shows. They have the tents now, so a place like the Grand Valley Inn, starting March 27th, they have a whole schedule of quote unquote outdoor shows. There's a tent. The audience is undercover. They're hoping late March is going to be warm enough. Thursday's Restaurant Bridgewater, they have a sort of an outdoor thing again. So it's a kind of a hybrid. It's the live concert experience. You're kind of under a roof. You're kind of in a bar, and hopeful for that, because that was another way to get some fix. You get some of your music.
Yeah, and outdoors obviously safer than plying people into an indoor venue as well too. I had an interesting thought on the way here this morning. I wanted to run it by you. Isn't it interesting, the theory that if this continues, and let's hope not, but let's just say this kind of lifestyle for all of us continues for another year, 2 or 3, distancing, masking, and so forth, just until we really eradicate it. I don't like to use the word damage, but just hear me out for a second. The immediate damage to your national acts is going to be pretty broad, but this might be the groundswell of your local music, your local acts, your aspiring artists that actually can raise their statue while the biggies are taking a hit. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because you're going to see the club shows come back, I think, before the arena shows.
Right.
Maybe not the general admission ones, but a place like Mr. Smalls, maybe they'll have to put chairs out. But you're going to see the 500-seat places bounce back before PPG Paints Arena.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And so, who's going to fill those small clubs, the local bands, and I'd see that happening.
And it's interesting, too, in Pittsburgh, the joke was always that, the guy will go on a date and spend like $50 on drinks at the bar, these fancy ones he can't pronounce, but he won't pay a $5 cover to go see a band. But maybe this is what local music might have needed in the big picture. I mean, it stunk the first year, but now this is where people are going to get their fix locally to get their live music events for a while anyways.
And the national bands used to getting thousands and thousands of dollars for shows. The local bands, they'll do it for $800, $500, or whatever like that. So yeah.
I don't know. It might work in reverse. It might help local music to a little bit.
Well, I hope it's a thing that you don't know what you got till it's gone. I hope a lot of people are realizing, people who maybe only went to a couple shows in prior years, but man, I do need to do this more often. And maybe it is worth going out on a Thursday night and only getting 5 hours of sleep. I can fake my way through a Friday to do it, So
yeah, it's made me feel that way. I can tell you over the last couple of years, as I got a little bit older, longer in the tooth, there's been some nights that I declined to go out. I'm kind of tired. I think I'll hang in. In years prior, I would have gone. And now, if I had given the opportunity, I would go right now. I mean, I just miss live music.
Yeah, because the people, generation ahead of me, they talk about in the late 70s, early 80s, you could go to a show 4 or 5 nights a week. And that's so hard for me to believe. When on a Tuesday night, you'd walk into Maury's Speakeasy and there'd be 300 people. And they said, yeah, maybe that comes back. A new Roaring 20s is what I'm trying to say.
Well, things are cyclical. And we had a pandemic in 1917, 18, and 19. And then it was followed by the Roaring 20s.
Right.
Who knows? I mean, from what I see out there, I'm afraid to unleash everybody at one time because it'll be a little bit
We need
insane.
to do it right. Yes.
It'll be a little bit insane.
Yeah.
Talk a little about your career. Like, what was the spark in you that was it music? Was it film? What was it that really got you in the entertainment vibe early?
I grew up in a 2-newspaper home. We remember there's the Pittsburgh Press and the Post-Gazette. And I was, as a 13, 14-year-old kid, I loved baseball. I couldn't wait to read the box scores. I know you're an Oakland A's fan. To me, that was a thrill. But then I started reading concert reviews, and I started these bands I liked. I realized that someone was making a living going to an Aerosmith show, covering Deep Purple, writing about Yes, interviewing Richie Blackmore or something. And I thought, whoa, wouldn't that be an awesome way to make a living? Yeah. So I joined my high school paper. My first byline was an Aerosmith concert review. The 82 show where Steven Tyler was trashed and couldn't remember the lyrics. I went to Duquesne
Perry wasn't in great shape either then.
Yeah, there was no Joe Perry. It was one of their worst.
That's right. He wasn't there, huh?
Yeah. And then, joined the college paper Duquesne, and I wanted to write music. And again, I covered an Aerosmith show as one of my first ones, and I just kept taking the next level. Started the Beaver County Times, and you'll never guess one of the first bands I covered. It was Aerosmith. So I've been following them.
Of course.
They've been there everywhere. And then I started doing phone interviews. I went from from Tom Hamilton to Joey Kramer to Brad Whitford to Joe Perry. I kept going up the Aerosmith chain of command. Finally got to Steven Tyler when he was in town for American Idol as one of the judges. I got to raise my hand and ask Steven a question. So
how cool is that?
My work with Aerosmith is done.
You wiped them off your list.
But it all comes back just to reading the concert reviews, and I loved it. And even when I was like 15, and I was just starting to go to shows, and I wasn't quite old enough, it was like, wow, I couldn't wait to see what happened. I knew Paul McCartney was in town the night before. Oh, I got to read this and see what it was about. And just the thought of, wow, that'd be awesome to write about that and share that. And,
And that was the first vibe for you. And this happened as a kid initially?
Yeah.
You were in high school?
Yeah. I mean, again, 13, 14. It's hard to, granted, newspapers were, and I work for a newspaper, I got to be careful, but they were a much bigger deal back. I mean, that was the only game in town.
Yeah.
TV wasn't doing much entertainment.
I remember, pal. I used to, both of those publications you mentioned, I used to deliver as a kid.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I remember the Sundays were really heavy. I hated the Sundays.
And I was a radio geek. I would listen. There was like, I'm trying to remember some of those shows. They would do live concerts, and I would stay up and tape record them. Remember you would
Dr. Demento. You remember that?
Ones like that. Or what was one of the King Biscuit Flour Hour?
Biscuit Flower Hour.
I still have a cassette tape of King Crimson's like 1973 show at the Stanley, which would just melt your brain if you listen to it.
I know.
But I started listening to radio. And then it was 81, I guess, the great Jim Morrison revival, 10 years after his death. Yeah. He was on the cover of Rolling Stone. He's young, he's sexy, he's dead, or the headline was something like that. And there was this renewed interest in the Doors. And for me, I was like, I guess like 16, I'm trying to do the math here in my head, but just getting into serious rock and roll, and then I just fell in love with the whole Jim Morrison story. I read No One Here Gets Out Alive, and I got to see more of the journalism part of it, how you could write, do a historical count of a great band, and the writing part of me started to get, oh man, to be able to interview people and share this great musical story, that kind of stoked my interest as well.
Yeah, just a little aside on that. Were you familiar with the Cameron Crowe movie? What was the Almost Famous?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you like? I'm guessing you probably dug that movie.
But I was jealous that he got to do that. But yeah, they did a good job. And then he goes and marries Nancy Wilson, right?
Yeah, he did okay. Yeah, that became my favorite movie for a long time. There was and again, it's the age, being 55 was the era I grew up in. But it was that era coupled with the way that movie was written and my love of music. All that together was like, what an unbelievable story.
Yeah, there was a little more. The music journalists and the bands were a little closer then. There wasn't a layer of PR people separating them or marketing people.
What years did that start to happen?
I would put some of the blame on Clear Channel. It became Live Nation. I think back to when I covered Star Lake shows in the late 90s. They would a person would come around and hand us the set list before the show, and they would hand us the attendance figure halfway through the show, and it was a little easier to get a hold of some of that information. And then it got a lot more businessy, a lot more secretive. And we, like those articles I talked about, I read in the Pittsburgh Press. It would say 10,300 people showed up last night to see whoever. Right. We don't get those numbers anymore. Right. It got a lot more.
I noticed
secretive.
That. Attendance used to be something they would just reveal.
Yeah. I've gotten good at estimating them, but,
I would imagine
Me and Mervis, the post, got a joke. Maybe we should keep really underestimating them by thousands, and they'll panic. If it's a sold-out 15,000, we say there are only 9,000 people there. They'll be like, wait a minute. Maybe that's the secret.
When Star Lake was built, the first year I think was 89, 88, 90.
I was going to say 90.
Was it 90? Yeah. Okay. Being a rock and roll fan and a music journalist, what was your thoughts of that shed? Had you gone to different cities and seen outdoor venues prior, or was that a whole new experience for you?
That was a new experience, I think. I mean, I'd seen some outdoor shows like a Grateful Dead show in Columbus and everything, but as far as the shed, like you said, the pavilion where it's designed a certain way, and at first, I really liked it. I didn't, like everyone else, I got stuck in the traffic at Star Lake, and that became but I still enjoyed it. It's close to Beaver County. But I noticed something really weird. I did a list a year ago or so, my favorite shows by venue, and some were so. And when I got to Star Lake, like my top 20 shows, only a handful were there. Like David Bowie was in '90 was an awesome show, but a lot of my favorite shows are indoor at arenas. And I'm wondering why. Is it the visual? Is it the sound? Is it the crowd? I don't have a theory. What are your
So you
thoughts?
didn't put any thought in that. It just happened that way as you made your shows.
I mean, there were some great ones at Star Lake. Don't get me wrong, like Jimmy Page with the Black Crowes, and I mentioned Bowie, but
I was front row center on charity seats that night. Section seat row 1AA in the center, standing up, looking at Jimmy Page, which that was
the God of
finally, I was at Mecca.
Yeah, I can imagine. So, I don't know if it's the venue's fault. Maybe it's just something about indoor. It's a little more. There's more of it. There's more lights. There's more lasers. Or maybe I just grew up seeing so many arena shows that it became a comfort area for me.
It might be. I think that's where I'm at too. It wasn't that I dismissed outdoor shows. There was something cool about being outside, but. When that opened in '90, I still was still a hard rocker. I was still a metalhead for the most part, to some degree. And metal shows to me just didn't translate to the outdoor venue.
Yes.
If they had a good stage and light show, I mean, I remember seeing like Iron Maiden and Kiss and bands like that, and seeing Kiss outdoors and having them start when it was almost kind of light out. Things just didn't Rush, same thing. Seeing Rush start with no opening act and starting when it was still daylight. That's not how Rush is supposed to be experienced. Right?
When Rob Halford brings out the Harley, you need that echoing off the walls of a venue, not outdoor.
Yeah. And I saw a Black Sabbath show 25 years ago in some incarnation of that band where they were outside during the afternoon, and it just does not. There's something about that theoretical, not theoretical. Just the nature of the visuals for heavy metal that translates better to indoor events, I think. I don't know. That's just me.
And then I wonder, is the crowd an angle too? There are people who go to an outdoor show for the tailgate, for the festival.
No question.
You know what I mean? I mean, if you go to a Jimmy Buffett show, I question if half the people can name more than 5 of his songs. So
it's like an event as opposed to being something you really look forward to. It's like just something to do.
But if you're going to a Tool concert, you know every single song, the set list, what songs they never, and it's usually an indoor show, and there's like a harder core.
That's
audience,
interesting.
I think.
So on the country music front, I find that a lot, that they become events that people from all musical genres, people who dig all musical genres, just go because that's the place to go and have some drinks and party.
Yeah.
As opposed to really being in love with the act.
Right. I'm not totally knocking it. There's something to be said for a good party. But I just wonder if when I think back to my most memorable shows, some of them were even like an altar bar or something. You know what I mean? Or it could have been Club Cafe, whatever. But not too many in the outdoor setting.
For you, and I ask you this because obviously you've been exposed to pretty much everything. If Scott Tady is going to have a night out in a utopian society, in a utopian circumstance where your work was separate from you going out and having a good night of music, I'm not going to put you on the spot, but what genre generally, or what kinds of music would you prefer to go to for pure enjoyment on your end?
Wow, that is a great question. Because I do like a mix, but I grew up a big progressive rock fan, and that's a music that really takes me away. I'm not thinking about what time do I get up tomorrow, or do I have a busy day the next day. If I'm seeing Yes, if I'm seeing Pink Floyd, if I'm seeing Moody Blues, anyone like that, I'm really just kind of swept away by the music.
Okay,
and
so that'd be your preference then.
I think, but then there's something just about I love Warped Tour too. To me, Warped Tour, I could see 22 bands in one day.
Yeah.
And they only got 25 minutes, so they had to do their 25 best music, and I love that. And then just move on to the next one. So there's something to be said for that too. And again, that's outdoor, which is, I guess, an exception. But I don't know. But progressive rock to me is really something I can get absorbed in.
Yeah, and they put a whole. Progressive rock to me, those big acts, I think of Rush just because that's where I grew up on, and I certainly put them in that genre. They really cared about the entire experience for the listener. It wasn't like they were going up there like, and I guess the Stones do agree, but the Stones are more of a garage band playing in front of 80,000 people.
Yeah, right.
Really, and that doesn't always translate well, but obviously progressive or theatrical rock does, and especially indoors as well too.
Right. Yeah. That's funny you mentioned Rush. I was going through some old clips the other day. I found, I don't know if it's 2005, 2007. You can help me with the year, but I had my top 10 shows of the year. Rush was number 1. Bowie was number 2.
Wow.
Prince was number 3. Man, what a year that was.
Boy, I don't know.
It was Bowie at the Benedum, Prince at, of course, Mellon Arena, and Rush. I don't know if it was in...
When's the last time Prince was here?
Whatever year that was. I was like, man, what a year that was. And Ben Folds was at Chevrolet Amphitheater.
Ben Folds 5.
Yeah.
Oh my, that is a way back.
Yeah, I just stumbled upon this old article.
Is that 96 maybe?
I think it was in the early 2000s.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I think. Yeah.
Those bands go on for so long, and to be a fan of a legacy band who continues to tour, and they slow down a little bit as they get older. They don't put as many records out. We can talk about that, but they've got so many eras. Like when I look at Rush, that band has so many eras. It used to be like old Rush, new Rush. Now there's old Rush, not so old Rush, medium Rush, newer Rush, latest Rush. They just last forever. I mean, and that's, I guess that's the crazy part about music is that you can. I found that I experience bands I love later in my life as they have grown older in a different way than I did when I was young. It's the same, but kind of not.
Are there any bands you didn't like as a kid? Now you're like, oh, I get it.
Oh, that's a good question.
For me, Beach Boys was one. Growing up, I was like, that's California. I don't relate to that. All this surf music.
Interesting.
Then you reach a certain age and you listen to Pet Sounds and you hear the vocal harmonies and you see the genius behind it.
You appreciate it.
And then you get to see them in concert. Even though I don't care, they're 80 years old. There's just a magic there. And it's like, whoa, I'm glad I was very late to the party, but I'm glad I joined it.
I think for me it'd be 2. The first one absolutely positively would be Fleetwood Mac. My mother wore those records out as a kid, and I just had to listen to them because I was trying to listen to Sabbath and all these other bands then. But then you get older and you realize, oh my God, these are some of the greatest melodic rockish style songs ever written. Who's done better than that? In your head, like, have I heard anything better than this?
And then you learn the tension behind it. How
exactly
Silver Spring,
right.
Stevie Nicks is singing to the guy who broke her heart, or whatever.
No doubt.
And he's standing 10 feet away from
No doubt. The other thing too, and this is going to be a strange one, but the Sex Pistols for me, because I dismissed that noise when I was a little metalhead, because that was coming from Britain and I couldn't relate to the whole angst thing, and I was a suburban kid, right? But as years gone by, that record to me it's just a rock record to me. I don't think it's a punk record. It's just rock and hard rock music with a very odd vocalist. So it just endeared me. The whole thing, I missed it all. Really, I really missed it. I just didn't pay attention to it.
A lot of guys our age, our generation, that's the case. And some of them do revisionist history. They'll say, I was a Ramones fan in high school. No, you weren't. And when you got to college, then you kind of gained the appreciation for them. But a lot of us, we grew up on Iron Maiden, Dio, Priest, and you know what I mean,
No
Sabbath.
doubt it, man.
And punk was to me, you know what it was? I think Motorhead was the gap. I think that's what bridged it for us.
No question.
Back when Odds record was a thing, you would go to Odds. It'd always be the guys with the mohawk back when that was dangerous and exciting. And they would always, Motorhead was the one band everyone could agree on. If you were punk, if you're a metalhead, and I think that kind of brought us together. Once
and it's funny too, to other degree, any metalhead will always seem to agree. They may not know any of their music, but the band I'm talking about is Slayer.
Yeah,
I can tell you one song, Raining Blood, I think is one song that I know in my consciousness. Don't know anything else, but I know they're musicians. I can see them, but when you see Slayer, it's Slayer. Meanwhile, no one knows any of their music.
That's a band.
There's reverence, but no one knows it.
Yes, because that's a band I've seen live, and I'm enjoying it, but I'm not on the same level as everyone around me. It's
exactly.
Like in a religious thing, and I respect that. I got nothing bad to say, but I've done some interviews with Carrie and some others, but I'm not quite where they are,
Yeah,
but that's fun.
That's a great thing about music, right? I mean, and you covered it. What was the weirdest show, or one of the weirdest shows that you ever seen? It could be because of the artist. It could be because of what happened that night. It could be the event. What was just a weird experience for you?
I think back a lot to Ray LaMontagne at Stage AE. It was an outdoor show, and it was a typical chatty crowd just yakking, and finally he just said, "Shut the F up." And he was serious. He wasn't just joking. And he said, I will, if this is your attitude, I will refund the ticket of anyone here who walks out right now because I want to do my thing. And I was like silently applauding him, like, yes.
Really?
I'm so glad to hear, because people were. I for some reason, some of those shows there, there'll be groups of people in front of the stage turning around, not even facing the stage as they're talking. It's like background music. I want to hear Ray LaMontagne.
It's pretty disrespectful.
But I was so proud that somebody did. But it was shocking. It was one of those moments like, oh my God, did he just say that? I'm looking around. So that always stands. I mentioned, we joked about Aerosmith earlier, how bad that show was in
'82. I think I was there as a kid, if I remember correctly.
People always ask me the worst show, and I hate to say it's Justin Bieber because that seems so obvious. And I've gone I've gone to pop shows and I saw One Direction. Okay, I can see. I'm a Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah.
But the Biebs show, the last one he did at PBJ Paints Arena, it was the worst lip syncing ever. He would have the microphone down by his waist as he's quote unquote singing, and it's like, dude, at least give an effort, at least look like you're doing it. And just that to me, that was a contempt for his audience.
Yeah.
I'm not even gonna, so as much as I hate to say that was one of the worst shows, it was.
How much?
And I went there with an open mind.
You would have to.
Yeah. Post Malone was an opener the time before that, and I was one. I'm like, why are people cheering for this guy? Then 2-3 years later, he exploded. Now he's everywhere. But
yeah, and I guess like you hinted at earlier, we don't have to understand it. I'm pragmatic in my age. I don't have to understand it for it to be valid. If people dig it, they'll pay for it, and they like it. That's validity. I don't have to like it. Yeah. It's just validity. But I think a lot of people are just so closed-minded when it comes to. And it's a shame. It's a generational thing. I don't want to end up like my parents were when they saw my music.
Right. I get mad when people are our age in their 60s and up, and they'll say like, "Oh, there's no good bands today." Well, yeah, there are. And
you're not trying hard enough to find them.
Yeah. For a while, there was hope when Greta Van Fleet first came out. A lot of older people I know were like, they sound like Zeppelin, whatever, and they were a flash in the pan, but then their next album came out and it was like, I think they rushed them too soon.
I feel the same way.
They rushed them.
Yeah, I was disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like, listen, you close your eyes and you didn't know the song, but the music and vocals sure sounded like Robert and Jimmy to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it was funny about that band in particular. I don't think it's just the vocalist. I mean, that's the first thing you hear is, that's a young Robert Plant. I pay attention to the guitars, and I'm telling you, the kid's movements, the voicing of the chords, I mean, that is That's like a little Jimmy Page there.
I saw them upstairs at Mr. Small's, the clubhouse, and they first came out. There were only like 100 people there, and he was doing behind his head kind of guitar skill. You know, he was doing like Hendrix tricks, but playing like Jimmy Page, and it was spectacular. Then the next time they were at Stage 8, it was good, it was fun, it was exciting, but the next album came out, and now they've lost a lot of momentum, and now it seems like people have kind of...
well, they've got to write things to stand on their own. They got to get beyond their actual the imitation of Zeppelin, because they can say they're not doing it. Obviously, you don't do something so close to the book like that and not be aware of it, right?
Yeah. You think back Oasis, they sounded so much like the Beatles when they started out, and I was always surprised they got a free pass from that. I was surprised more people were like, "Oh, you're ripping off the Beatles." For some reason,
they did get a free pass from that.
Yeah,
they did get a free pass.
I think because the Gallagher brothers were so quotable, the British press just loved them. They knew they could rely on them to do something crazy and start a fight, and it was great ink. It was great to write about. I think that's why they wanted to perpetuate that. And now they got to be better songwriters. I do like them, but I was always surprised they didn't get slogged off more for that.
The kids that I worked with in the guitar years, I kind of felt sad for, because this would have been 2004 on. I noticed that the guitar heroes were going away, like Zakk Wylde. There was some lesser known John Petrucci, some lesser known guitarists in a medium scale bands, but the pure guitar hero seemed like they're just ebbing away. I don't even know who there is right now. With Eddie Van Halen being the heavyweight and no longer being here, I don't know who is left as a quote-unquote guitar hero. Someone that's going to get a young kid involved in rock and roll and someone he can look up to. And that guitar hero thing doesn't seem to be around anymore. What's your thoughts on that?
That's very true. I remember we used to argue on the school bus, like, who's the greatest drummer? Neil Peart, no, John Bonham. I always put in like Ian Pace of Deep Purple. But
good choice.
I don't know if kids do that. I guess they don't. They don't argue things like that. And is it because the skill level isn't there? Or is it because there's just other things people are focused on? Is it more of the visuals? Is it more of the how they look on TikTok or what their Twitter presence is? I don't know, but you're right. I'm trying to think who's the current great guitar. There was kind of that second wave when we had like Jack White, we had Tom Morello, but as far as now, people the last 10 years, I'm struggling to come up with a name of who would be the pinnacle.
Yeah, and that industry, that musical instrument industry, especially with guitars, and to a lesser degree, I'd imagine drums, they really rely on kids being, they're icons. That's why you see endorsement deals. Why guitarists play certain guitars, because they're trying to get people to buy. And it's life. I get it. It's business. But to me, being entrenched in it, it's a little sad to see music change in a way where the instrument is kind of de-emphasized now. I don't know. I think the song, if it was truly organic music, that'd be wonderful. But what's your thoughts on electronic music? I mean, going back to the 70s, when really, I guess, the Moogs and the synths started then, as to what we have now, like, have we really lost anything, or it's just different now?
I've gone to some shows to try to grasp. I've seen like Skrillex, and I remember Starlake had a like an EDM festival once, and I've interviewed Steve Aoki, and I'm trying to get more of a grasp for it. But what I resent is how much of it is live. You know what I mean? Even like Girl Talk from Pittsburgh, great. It's one of the funnest shows you ever see. But I'm wondering, well, basically he's using a mouse and clicking on some pre-recorded things. Right. And how live is that? And it's more about the spectacle. It's more about the people dancing. And I get it. People want to go out and dance and have at it. But as a music fan like you, I want to be staring at the guitars and saying, how's he making that sound? Right? I want to see how crazy the drummer is playing, and I'm not getting that.
It's different now. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
We call it music because I guess that's what our definition is of it. But I mean, I don't know. I think I've had so many artists on this show, and the consensus seems to be that computer technology has not been music's friend.
I'll go with that. I resent now that I have to really study and see if the singer is singing live all the time. I mean, we've gotten so used to pre-recorded tracks, backing tracks, whatever, that sometimes, like, I don't want to be gushing about this person, how great their voice was, if wait a minute, they weren't even singing. I mean, there was a big debate, the inauguration, Jennifer Lopez, how much of that was live, and a lot of people thought just the very end was, and I mean, it sounded fabulous. I was in the other room when she started singing. I was like, wow, that sounds really good. And then later you find out why. Well, maybe 20% of it was live. And I resent that as a music fan, I have to focus extra on, is this person really singing to me right now? It shouldn't be so accepted.
Good point. I remember when Kiss went out 2 years ago for this last farewell tour, and I couldn't believe I was hearing that band, the band that used to just really criticize every band that ever had backing tracks or lip syncing, they criticized them on stage. They criticized them, that they were doing it now too, and it was just disheartening to me. Like if because that blurs the line between real and not real, or live and not live. Like, are we now just conditioned to believe that live music involves these things?
Right. Everyone's asked me what I thought about the Weeknd, his Super Bowl halftime performance, and my answer was I saw a lot, but I didn't feel anything. I didn't get a sense of how much of the singing was live, and the songs, they're fun on the radio, but as far as a live performer, there was I don't know. Like Bruno Mars, I felt a lot when he was dancing and doing these cool moves and singing his heart off, and I loved that. Like a lot of people.
Right.
I think back to the Prince Super Bowl show. I think back to Springsteen. You think of some of the great ones, and Lady Gaga I thought was fabulous, and she seemed to be singing from her heart. And it wasn't perfectionist singing, but she was singing live. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
don't know. Sometimes it gets awash in the production, and we're kind of de-emphasizing the actual performance.
How has writing reviews changed throughout your career? What in regards to naturally music genres have changed, music genres have blended. Music genre is pretty much dictated by record companies, anyways. That's how it started. But like the process of writing a review and your expectations, like now you're expecting some of these legacy bands to have lip syncing as part of their. You have to kind of maneuver your review around that. Yeah. Whereas if they did that nonsense in '85. They would get trashed for that. People would throw bottles on the stage if they saw them lip syncing, right? But now it's almost accepted. Is that part of? Do you take into account the era we're into as you write a review, or is your style pretty much the same now as it always has been?
Yeah, it's tough. I need a smoking gun if I'm going to call someone out for not like the Justin Bieber one was obvious. So sometimes I'm 70% of me sure it's pre-recorded, but I just don't have enough to put that in print. You know what I mean? So I'll dance around every once in a while. One thing that's gotten better is I'll go to a show and I'll write the review the next morning and I'll have it online by like 10 a.m. We figure by 10 a.m. people were online.
Yeah.
There was a time in the late 90s where they wanted it the next day, and I was missing the end of shows sometimes to meet deadline. U2 in 2000, maybe one of the best top 3 shows I ever saw, but I missed most of the encore because I was writing my review. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's like reviewing a movie, and I didn't see the ending, but
right.
So I think people are more relaxed with that. Readers are more relaxed on when they wake up the nenext morning. Their work computer. Then they're a couple hours in, they're bored. Oh, now I'll see what the review said. So I'm cool with that. To me, one of the most slippery slopes now is the hashtag on Twitter. If I'm reviewing a show and I hashtag the artist, that's slippery. Like if you're not going to do that if you're slamming the band. If the band stinks, you're not going to. Yeah. So I worry are some reviewers being a little extra kind, figuring, well, if that's hashtag, and think of an artist is. Graham Nash shares this with his 15,000 followers, and I'm going to get more clicks. My newspaper's going to say, hey, I got more clicks on his review. Not often do I hashtag in a review, but every once in a while. But I always worry, is that the right thing to do?
Yeah, I totally get it, where the review becomes a puff piece.
Yeah.
That the artist can use. I'm sure every artist is going to use any good review, but if it's written with integrity, then so be it, right?
Yeah.
But
I've had something like Hailstorm shared mine, and I didn't purposely hashtag them, but they shared it, and it went bonkers. It went, thousands of views. So those ones are cool, but I see a lot of reviewers will do that, and I always wonder if that's the right thing.
How the fan experience, you being a music fan and growing up a music fan, and then also being in the business, how has the fan experience changed for the good and the bad in regards to the internet? Was the internet the big change? The big in '96ish when the internet started to proliferate, was that the monumental thing that changed everything? Naturally, downloading, and we'll get there, but the fan experience. Do you think there was a big tidal change in the mid '90s with the proliferation of the internet?
Yeah, I think it's erased a bit of the wall. I think more fans get to meet their heroes now. I mean, granted, you're paying more, but you're able to go on their fan club site. You're able to sign up for something. You're able to, get meet and greets from the internet, and you see what they're doing more. It's not as controlled by the labels. Bands seem to have a little bit more freedom on how they share themselves through Twitter. I know what Wiz Khalifa's thinking at all hours because he's tweeting, he's high tweeting, but I feel like I know. So I think it was a little bit more, we were a little more distant back then, but then part of me thinks, well, maybe that was cooler to,
mystery.
I mean, they were more mystical now. I don't know if I want to, and maybe you've met Richie Blackmore, but if I was backstage with him, I don't. Maybe I'd be better off not meeting him.
You might be disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point too. That's a good point. Where I was having this conversation with my son that musical artists and music in general, it seems for him and maybe some of his friends that I can observe, it takes a different. It's viewed differently. It's not viewed with a reverence or with an astonishment that maybe we had, because they were distant, elusive people when we were young.
Right.
The thing about Rush was that those three guys were so weird, and all you knew about them was what was written on that line, the liner notes of that album, and maybe DV once in a while would throw a song on there. But the point was you didn't know anything else, so that created an aura about them. But now with the communication being such that artists are tweeting out constantly all day long, are we losing something in the experience of being a quote unquote fan?
Yeah, it's not quite as mystical. Though I actually saw enough shows to do a top 10 last year concert, and I had the Tubes concert at Jurgles #1, and like a month later, the Tubes themselves reached out to me. Hey, thanks, Scott, on Twitter. So like 14-year-old me would have been pretty stoked to know that Fee Waybill knew who I was, yet alone.
Sure.
So there's that, but yeah, they're I don't know, they're not quite as godlike as they used to be.
Yeah, and that's maybe just a good thing in that too. But yet, you look at society in general. A lot of like The Rock, his popularity. A Rock is one of the most popular people in the world, and you can't tell me that Instagram did not help create that, right?
Yeah.
So you have those folks, the elite in society in terms of popularity. You have that, but then the regular quote unquote musicians and artists are so accessible to their fans constantly. I think it just takes away from the experience of it, It
is a whole other art form now. Bands have to learn how to promote themselves, not rely on some PR person from a label. They have to know how to be engaging. But some do it really well, like Jason Isbell. I love his
right.
take. He's not afraid to get into any controversy. He'll jump right in and say something very profound, and maybe 80% of the time I agree with him, but I'm always like, ooh, that's good. So he's an example, but a lot of others, it's just babble. I'm not getting the same.
Yeah.
And then there's timing. I remember the one year, and this is going back, of course, but it was, it might have been when Joe Paterno died or something like that, but Lady Gaga tweeted, hey, my new album comes out. There was like a natural disaster somewhere, like some terrible news. And right in the middle of that, she tweeted, hey, my new album's out. And I'm sure that they planned that 10 hours in advance at 10 p.m., but the timing was so bad, a lot of people were like, responding like, don't you see what's going on in the world, whatever. And
right.
But there's an art to it, and part of me feels sorry for the bands because I have to do it as a journalist. I have to promote myself. I have to.
Well, certainly.
First thing I do every Sunday morning is I post my column, and I try to engage readers, and I try to think of amusing things to say to get them talking back to me and reading.
Do you like the new landscape? I mean, if this all existed maybe 20 years ago in your career, would you embrace it with the same zeal that you're doing it now, or do you feel that you have to do it now because that's reality?
I guess both. I like having a wider audience now. You tweet something and you'll get a person who doesn't live within range of Beaver County or Pittsburgh responding to it. So that's kind of cool, the bigger reach.
Right.
But I hate chasing the numbers. I hate if I'll post something and I'll look back 2 hours later, only 12 people liked it. Then you feel like you've failed.
Yeah.
The reviews.
It's a weird currency, isn't it?
Yeah. I put too much weight on these numbers. I wish I could stop doing that.
Yeah.
I like the accessibility. I like more people can see it, but then if they're not liking it, then I feel I failed, and that can't be healthy for anybody.
It's a strange currency because I'm not convinced that the number of likes really, especially in your case, it really isn't probably the best barometer as to who you reach, because I think a lot of people ingest content, they don't do anything with it. They ingest it and move on.
Right.
They don't put their signature stamp on there. They're not compelled to do that. Doesn't mean that you haven't reached people, but then how do you? I don't know. How do you? Where's the proof of that? It's a strange currency. Are you a big album guy? Do you like albums? Do you still have that fondness for the vinyl?
Yeah, I have 2 turntables, and I can't get either one of them to work. I don't know if I'm missing a wire or something, because I have, I probably still have about 400 vinyl albums. I sold a bunch a few years ago to make room when I was downsizing, but yeah, to me, there's never been a better sound. That warmth you get when the needle in the groove, that vinyl sound, it just has not been topped. And I do like to play vinyl. I need to get and I'm so excited. Monaca now has a vinyl store, Inner Groove Records in downtown Monaca.
There you go.
They opened late December and seem to be going well. People on Facebook sharing their finds. And I'm like,
Very cool.
I need to get that album.
Very cool.
So
Remember Dr. Doyle's disc den?
Yes.
I used to buy used records down there in the 80s.
the numbers are back. The vinyl sales are actually up quite a bit, and it is the young people. God bless them. It is the millennials and even Gen X now that are the ones that are getting into it, and I can see why they've been like we were talking about the liner notes. That was just magical to sit back and try to read inner meanings. Oh, why is this guy wearing a sweater on this album? What is it? And
But that's all we had.
Yeah.
I mean, like I remember just the weird, quirkiest things. I was sharing this the other day, Scott. I remember looking at these Rush sleeves as a kid. I must have been like 10 or 8. And everything was so weird, like, oh, that's how Canadians must dress. And I saw Alex Lifeson in a sweater that looked exactly like the one my mother bought me.
Oh.
This plain cable knit gray sweater. And I'm going, hey, that's pretty normal. He's wearing that with jeans and Adidas tennis shoes. He's like a normal guy. Like the weirdest things you could attach as a child, but without that, there was nothing else, right?
maybe that meant your mom was cooler than you realized.
My mother was very cool, no doubt about that. But I guess,
yeah, you think like The Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, the Peter Gabriel Genesis one, and there's a whole novel inside the liner note. You can literally read that like a book, and I've read it probably 100 times.
And the artists that's part of their experience in putting that out. And it just seems like, and those things were miniaturized in CDs. I guess there was booklets and things, but you lost a big chunk there. But we lost everything with digital downloading, right?
And bands will ask me, do you want me to send, we have a new album, do you want a CD or do you want an MP? More often than not, it's MP3 or SoundCloud. And I love the accessibility of that. I can just, a couple clicks, bam, I'm already listening to it. But I find I'm not 100% focused as much because I'm at a computer. I hear a ding. I got an email. Let me see what it is. While I'm listening, I'll go on Facebook, see what's going on. I'm not 100% focused. If I was listening to a CD or a vinyl album, that would be my focus. I wouldn't be...
Very good point.
Other competition from other sources wouldn't be hitting me.
Very good point. I just find it amazing that here we are talking about CDs in the past tense and talking about how that's so much better than digital downloading. When I remember when CDs came out, I was pushing back because I couldn't. I wasn't getting all the goodies. I wasn't getting like all the stuff in the. You get the. I used to buy a Kiss. The first Kiss CD had like nothing on the inside to pull out. It was just like a piece of paper that had the picture of the band on it.
Yeah, what's the point of a physical graffiti CD?
Right.
You need the
that
vinyl.
was part of the whole magic. But so let's talk a little bit about downloading.
One more thing. One thing I've always resented about CDs, if you remember, they promised us they would last 99 years. Do you remember that promise?
Yeah.
I have so many CDs that skip and have broken, or that was a bill of goods they sold us, and so many people believe
There's no question that they were indestructible. I remember hearing that too. Yeah, okay, they're not indestructible, and they scratch.
Yes, exactly.
Rather easily, as a matter of fact. And the other thing too, which was disappointing, and I don't know if I was mentally sophisticated enough from a technology standpoint to tell you at that time what I was hearing, but I knew that those first pressing CDs were not of the same musical quality as my vinyl.
Right.
I could hear it. It was tinny, compressed.
That's the word, tinny.
Warble, like a little bit. I guess the oversampling rate wasn't perfected at that in 85, but they've gotten so much better. I get it. But I remember the early quality control was so bad on those CDs.
There was a 15-minute phase there talking about digital audio tape, and that was going to be the cassette tape was going to sound as good as your vinyl album. And somehow the industry killed that. I don't know if it was too good and they feared it, or if it wasn't as good as they hoped. But
that's very interesting.
What happened to DAT? Let's try to bring that back.
Weren't artists using that in the studio? I think for a while.
I think
like
so.
in the 80s,
Yeah.
like they record. Because I remember for a long time. This is kind of geekish, but if you looked at the bottom of a CD, it would say DDD or ADD. So it was like analog record, digitally mixed, and digitally mastered, and that would give you an indication of the technology. And it was on every CD, and you would know. And Rush was one of the few bands that had like all digital. And I remember going, "Wow, that's pretty powerful," but I guess it comes down to the engineer and so forth. But that was a thing, and it did kind of. Remember the mini disc?
Yeah.
What happened there?
Yeah. And singles, we had singles, and
the whole thing went away. When downloading first started with the proliferation of the internet, where did you first learn about it? Like where were you first exposed to Napster or whatever that primitive?
MySpace. Remember
MySpace. Yeah. That's when you first were.
Yeah, I got to the point where bands were sharing it on their music, sharing it there first, or if you wanted to listen to it. I remember there was, what was the Radiohead album? That was one of the first where it was only coming out digitally. It's like, well, I
remember that.
I guess I got to download it. I guess I can't go to, like the Kid A album, I bought on a cassette tape in the record store in, Robinson Town Center. The album after that, no, that wasn't an option. So
yeah.
I was dragged into it a little bit, but again, there are some advantages, the accessibility and everything. I can listen on my little cell phone here if I need to. But
artists took it on the chin financially. There's no question. Your legacy artists, especially, their ASCAP checks just literally almost evaporated overnight. But
what is the Spotify pay rate? It's decimal points.
It's
you
ridiculous.
need to be played like 50,000 times to get a dime or something. It's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. I don't even understand how they're monetized right now. But in the years that we were in the guitar business, it was just starting. Napster had come around in '99, and I think the whole Napster lawsuits were 2001, 2002, whatever. Lars Ulrich of Metallica was involved in that nonsense.
Yeah,
remember that stuff?
Yeah, people made him out to be a demon for that, and now it looks like he knew what he was doing. And
yeah, they all lost. I mean, see, all these legacy bands who did, and that's why that's my theory, Scott, as to why so many of these older bands are still touring. I think it's because I think some of them have to, because didn't everything get turned upside down where, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't bands used to tour to support the record sales?
Right.
And then everything now is flipped where the music's become kind of disposable. There's no revenue coming from there, so I tour to make money.
Stephen Colbert had a joke once. Music is like porn. Nobody pays for it anymore. And
that's horrible.
But
there's truth to that, right?
There really is. And you nailed it. Bands have to tour because they're not getting the revenue they were back in the day when they were selling 1.5 million albums, and it's pretty rare that anyone's selling that.
So knowing that bands have to tour to survive now, so that's the emphasis, not the recorded material. You and I would come to the logical conclusion that if that's the case, then live shows should be way better today than they were in the prior years. I don't think that's entirely the case, though. Do you?
There are more of them. I think I have more choices, but I think there are more bands too. It was a huge deal when when Judas Priest announced a new album, and we would see it in Hit Parade or some
Circus
magazine, and we look Circus. We look forward to that for the next couple of months, and it came out. And now bands will overnight secretly release something. So the market's saturated, but I think there's more bands to see because there's so many to keep tabs with, but it's not the same level. Like, oh my God, I'm going to be seeing Yes at the Mellon Arena or Civic Arena, whatever, and I can't believe I'm in the same building with these guys.
Yeah.
So
okay.
There's more now. There's a quantity more. I don't know if it's always the quality, but
yeah, quality is real subjective. There's definitely, I think there's more.
You said you don't think the shows are as good.
I just don't. I would think that if they were touring to support the record sales, there was an acceptable level of concerts we got kind of used to, and they want you to dig the music and go buy the record. They were getting paid primarily off the record, and usually they could break even, make a little money with T-shirt sales, but it was really to get paid off of that record. With that all gone, you think the only revenue stream they have is live music for the most part, that they would put all their effort into just making the most unbelievable show imaginable and hope that they'll get some more streams of it, right? Which the residual benefit, well, if it comes, it comes, but I'm going to make as much money as I possibly can on this tour. I don't know if the shows are exponentially better today than they were in the prior decades. I don't know.
Yeah.
You'd think they would be.
I think the industry's more forgiving, or was more forgiving back then. Think of like Pink Floyd, their first 3-4 albums they didn't really sell that well. It wasn't, Dark Side came out 72.
Uma Guma or something like that.
Yeah, Saucer Full of Secrets, the Piper at the Gates of Dawn.
That's some weird stuff, man.
Now I think when a band comes out, if your first album isn't a smash, you're dropped. Your history. You know what I mean? So I think, but I don't know if that's good or bad. Or bands,
there's more of them now.
Yeah, right. It's not as big of a deal. And do they need to? Are they trying too hard to come up with something that's, a room full of 10 consultants said this may be a hit if you do this? You know what I mean?
I hope not.
Bands aren't allowed to organically grow like a Pink Floyd did, like a Yes did. The first two Yes albums, okay, but in 70 came out the Yes album with all the hits, and then but they developed. It took them a while to get to that point. I don't know if bands get that same chance anymore. Maybe that's
a good
not
point.
fair.
What's your thoughts on Pittsburgh as a rock and roll town? I mean, and if you take your parochialism out of it and you set it over here and just look at it objectively based upon your career and what you know to be true or assume to be true, what is your thoughts on how we rank compared to maybe Cleveland or some of our neighboring Buffalo, Baltimore, places like that? I mean, can we hold our own, or are we still a live music town?
I think we are. I like the diversity here. I like the fact it's not just one. We're not putting our eggs in one basket. It's not Seattle grunge, it's not Austin, Americana, whatever like that. You can hear everything across the board: hip hop, R&B, jazz, rock, blues, you name it. But then again, it'd be great if we had someone on the national level that people pointed back to us. You know what I mean? Who is Pittsburgh's biggest? You want to go Code Orange right now? They're a great hope, and I'm hoping they do.
Hope.
But we don't have, trying to think of an example. You think Seattle, you think Pearl Jam, you think Nirvana,
right?
You know what I mean? You think of some of the.
Well, we have Wiz Khalifa,
right, right.
And we have Mac Miller, I guess
Definitely. Oh, and Daya, the pop singer, I'm predicting big things for this year. But as far as the rock scene, I don't know if we really. I mean, we love Donnie Iverson. Donnie Iverson, a national act. I found his vinyl records on Bourbon Street, New Orleans.
Right on.
But as far as the national scene, part of me wonders. I wish we had more national respect. I guess what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I would agree.
If you took, I've always said, if you took like the top, pick a number, 10, 20 Clark songs, put them up against the top 10 Goo Goo Dolls songs or top 10 Matchbox 20 songs, whatever. Clarks are much better.
Bury 'em.
Much better.
No question.
But why did those other bands get something that the Clarks didn't? That kind of.
That's the one. That band will be the one that goes down for me as the mystery of why they just never hit. And we've had great local acts all throughout. You could speak way more intelligently than me, but I'm a big Norm Nardini fan. Norm Nardini is Pittsburgh to me. Joe Grishecki, the Silencers, Billy Price. I can still consider him a Pittsburgher. These are people I would gladly pay 5 times what I pay for a national act just to go see them play, especially now. But the Clarks, that band was so much better than most of these national acts in their era, 90s, late 90s. You wonder why. It just didn't happen. I
thought one mistake they did in that Let It Go album came out. They released as the first single that Snowman song.
Yeah.
And the second single was Better Off Without You. And that was such a great song. A song so many people can relate to, a breakup song.
Agreed.
There's a little part of me thinks if they would have put that one out, maybe that would have been the difference.
Maybe.
But then Joe Grishecki's been asked that question a zillion times. Why you wish you would have been bigger, should you? And he says, well, I decided to stay in Pittsburgh. I didn't move to New York.
Yeah, I think all of them did.
And it's paid off in many ways, but there's always that wonder, well, what would have happened if he would have moved to Pittsburgh? But then again, he might not have loved living in New York. Yeah, you hear that story too. That people have gone on. I'm trying to think what jazz artists I was hearing.
But George Benson was a big Pittsburgher, and he moved out.
Right. I just saw a jazz. Man, who's the drummer? Roger Humphreys.
Oh yeah.
He was asked that once,
yeah.
and if he would have moved elsewhere, but he doesn't regret he didn't. It was much better staying in Pittsburgh. He felt better with people in Pittsburgh. So
right.
I don't know. There's that trade off, but I do wish we had more of a national stature where people thought Pittsburgh. They thought we know it's good. We know it. There's a lot of great clubs, a lot of great bands, and I think the radio is pretty supportive here.
Yeah.
I more than it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
No question.
Yeah.
Now, what elements of Rusted Root were Pittsburgh, right?
Yeah, they all were. Yeah,
all of them were.
Yeah, and you think about it, they were touring with the Dead. They toured with Santana.
They had a great run.
Yeah,
they had a great run.
Something internal happened there, and I'm sure it didn't help. The singer Gilbicki was dating Jen Wirtz in the band. I'm sure.
No, none of that stuff. None of that stuff helped. I'm sure.
You got to release your Rumors album first, and then break that. But I mean, if you remember what a great live band they were, though. But that's another one. And you still hear their song in the Enterprise rental car commercial. So they did make
Jim Donovan is the drummer. Has got his own gig here in Pittsburgh too. I know some of the band members there. It's good music.
He used to teach a yoga / drum thing right here in downtown Coriopolis. I remember doing a story.
Good, solid stuff. I mean, like really good, solid music. But like you said, you just wonder. Like Cleveland. It's funny. Cleveland claims to be the birthplace of really American rock and roll, right? Mm-hmm. And who knows? But they seem to hold that over us. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's there, and Cleveland's more of a rock and roll town. Do you believe that?
No, I lived in Sandusky, and I went to Cleveland for like a year. It's a great town. To me, it's very similar to Pittsburgh. I think we get too locked into the sports rivalry. Better, I'd say equal. I'd say we're about the same. Yeah. Okay,
because I have you gone to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
Yeah, and I've seen some shows at Blossom Music Center. And I saw
I have too.
Shows downtown and everything like that.
It's like the Shed.
It really is.
Same feels a Star Lake, right?
They get more bands, and I had to see Radiohead there twice because back then Radiohead wasn't coming to Pittsburgh, and it seems like they were getting some acts we weren't. But you can do that. It's not that big of a deal. There's not that many bands. They're not getting, Well, although like Florence and the Machine played there and didn't play Pittsburgh. Every once in a while, I can come up with an example.
Is that more about our tax base though? Like I know that like a lot of bands don't want to play down in Allegheny County because I guess the entertainment taxes are higher there.
I think they look at the numbers too. If you're just judging the population of the city, Pittsburgh ranks like 27th.
Yeah,
and Cleveland's like 13th.
It's decreasing.
Of course,
too.
here it's all the little municipality. I mean, our metro area puts us much higher. But if you're a PR marketing guy, you're like, oh, Pittsburgh, that's like the 27th biggest city. Well, we're only doing the 25 biggest cities. Sorry, guys. So
got it.
Kind of works against us.
As a journalist, what is your thoughts on the concept of a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
The Hall of Fame, I support. Oh, I'm doing it backwards. The museum I like and support. Hall of Fame to me is silly. I don't need someone to say, okay, now we're going to put yes in the Hall of Fame. Now, okay, now I guess they're. I mean, it's ridiculous. I like to have fun with it because people get so worked up about it.
They do.
When they announce the nominees,
it's good content.
I post it right away. Yes, and I'll fan the flames. And I can't believe how come Judas Priest isn't there? Well, now that they're nominated, so it gets people worked up. But we need a Hall of Fame. It's cool to see all that old memorabilia and to learn some stuff. But I keep saying it backwards. We need the museum.
Yeah, we need a museum, right?
Pro museum, anti Hall of Fame. But I don't know. And I also don't like that 8 times out of 10 they had the reception in New York.
Yeah, why did they do that?
Because heaven forbid, they come to a flyover state. Some of these.
Well, it's just crazy. I mean, it should be there at the damn museum, right?
Every year, yeah.
So is the Hall of Fame? Is it really disconnected from the actual museum, or is it together?
Same building, the top floor.
Yeah,
the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And then the great debate, and people always go into this, well, is it a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Okay, how can Mary J. Blige be nominated? And how can Janet Jackson be in it? And things like that. And I see the argument, and just to be contrarian, I'll argue the opposite side, no matter what someone's saying. But I guess to me, it should mainly be rock and roll. They should have a wing that kind of acknowledges the other influences,
How do you
the Run
delineate?
DMC, Beastie Boys? Okay, they're not rock and roll, but they worked with rock. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but how do you delineate what the hell rock and roll is? Here we are labeling again, which I think, which what I love about the younger generation, what I love about my children's generation is that they are basically throwing the big middle finger to all these labels because they're going to just like what they like and dismiss what they don't. Yep. I think that's healthy. Our generation doesn't seem to like that very much, but like case in point, when you had the rapper that did the country song and it became this huge hit. And you have people
Old Town Road.
Yeah, people on both sides. That, your R&B folks and your urban music folks didn't like that, and the country music folks didn't like that. But I'm like, okay, don't like it, but I mean, why is your label of something valid? And if I deem not to make it applicable in my life, it's not. It's your label. You put that label on there, right?
That's a great debate. And then when people go too hard on the it should only be hardcore rock and roll, then I'll argue the other side just to have a good fun debate.
What is rock and roll though? I mean, if they were going to say, oh well, it should only be a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so Run DMC shouldn't be in there. Okay, so at what point, what band gets to the edge of rock and roll before going to something else? Like, where's the cutting line, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, where's it at?
You can debate that forever. Yeah.
I mean, is the knack rock and roll? I mean, like, is that the edge of like pop and rock and roll? The knack. We'll use the knack as the defining line. Yeah. Anything harder than the knack is rock and roll. Anything softer is pop music. I don't know.
But Jay-Z's going to get in before Dave Matthews Band. Does that make sense? I don't know. I mean,
no,
he's richer. He's got more money.
Good point. Good point.
He's probably more influential as a musician, I'm sure. But Dave Matthews Band is a very big part of what a rock and roll thing is, where fans come out and see 2 of his shows back to back. And
shouldn't it just be popular music, like Hall of Fame, like just call it popular music Hall of Fame?
There you go.
And this solves the whole.
But in Cleveland, we invented the term rock and roll. Alan Freed, stole a term that was already in use by musicians. He just was smart enough to coin it, I guess.
And Porky Chadwick was our version of Alan Freed, right, in town.
There used to be at the Rock and Roll Museum, there was a thing that honored groundbreaking DJs, and you would press a button, you could hear them do a little bit of their patter.
That's cool.
And Porky was one of them. You could hear him doing Daddy-o the radio, push the platter, push the batter. As you had headphones on. So I don't know if that's still there, but it was a neat little homage to some of the very first DJs, and they rightfully put him up there.
Yeah. Growing up, who was your absolute favorite? If you had to narrow down, what was the one go-to band for you when you were, let's say, below 16 years old? Before you were 16.
Band.
Yeah. Who did you dig? Like, if you had your druthers back then to listen to?
Pre-16 would have been Deep Purple, and then I really started getting into the Rolling Stones more and appreciated more of the songwriting. And
that's a little that's a reach for you because you were not born in that era. That's a little right before your time, right?
Right.
We're roughly the same age. I'm a little older than you, I think.
Yeah.
But I think that's because I had to go back and find that music. That wasn't really in my face.
Right. I think it was hearing the Made in Japan album and hearing that live and thinking, oh my God, this might be one of the top two guitarists ever. And oh wow, that drummer may be the best. Oh, the keyboard.
It's so heavy.
Yeah.
Man.
Once you realize what it's all about. Yeah.
Yeah. And Purple it wasn't Blackmore's guitar that was that heavy. I thought it was Lord's. Who's the?
Yeah, John Lord.
John Lord's keyboard.
And Hammond organ. Yeah.
That Hammond was that was the weight of that band. To me, the guitar was great, but it was thin.
Yeah.
That organ was just like, holy shit.
Yeah. And Ian Pace screaming the vocals and.
Yeah.
But my change.
Purple.
But I got to like early 20s, and you discover a band like the Replacements. Oh my God, I love them. Then you started getting. I got more into the songwriting aspect. It wasn't just who's playing this great guitar, but oh wow, this song is really funny and deep, and I relate to it. And then the Pogues became a big influence. I just love how does he come up with those lyrics? And then as I became more of a writer, I got more interested in bands that have the great songwriting.
A little more thought into the experience too.
Yeah.
The punk scene in Pittsburgh, I missed it all. Was there a punk scene in Pittsburgh for a period of time? Do you remember?
You hear about like Car Sickness and the Cheats and
So I don't know any of those bands.
I don't know if I was too old. I wasn't old enough for the Electric Banana. I missed some of the club scene. You know what I mean? So it was already kind of filtering out by the time I was seeing shows. So I don't know if we had a scene. I guess there was some music, but
was Nirvana like punk 2? Punk version 2 when that hit, or do you think it was something different?
I think it was, yeah. I can show you a place on Route 79 where I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" for the second time in my car, and I said the second time because the first time I heard it, I was like, "What the heck was that?" But I can show you where a spot on the highway where this song came on the radio again, and I turned it up. And I was like, "Oh my God, this may be the greatest thing!" And that was one of those groundbreaking songs to me. "Welcome to the Jungle," Guns N' Roses. It was just. Music changed a handful of times when songs like those came out.
Good point.
Things were never going to be the same.
Did you ever understand grunge, like in terms of the way it was marketed and labeled by record companies? The reason I asked that question is Nirvana isn't like Pearl Jam to me, who isn't like Soundgarden, who isn't like Stone Temple Pilots. All four of those acts are uniquely their own, yet the label threw them into Seattle grunge, right?
Right. It was too convenient. Yeah. We'll do the whole flannel thing. It's West Coast. Yeah. It was convenient marketing, but yeah.
Because I mean, rock. I don't know what Nirvana was to me. I don't know a force, but I don't know what they were. But rock. But STP is more of a pop rock band. I thought Stone Temple Pilots, but Pearl Jam was a rock and roll band, a hard rock band, and Soundgarden was a heavy hard rock band, right?
I would agree.
It had all come before. We had seen this before. It was good stuff, but it wasn't groundbreaking, was it?
In the very beginning, even though the first Pearl Jam album was at 11 or whatever, that was a hit. A lot of people kind of looked down their noses on them. If you're really into it, it was, if you were a hipster, it took them a while to become hip, acceptable.
Why? Why was that?
I don't know. Was it a rivalry thing on Nirvana's? Not to usually liking. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess anything coming out of that north.
Was it because MTV was playing the heck out of the Jeremy video? I don't know. You used the word pop, and they had a bit more of a popper reputation, and I don't think they had the artistic credibility that now most of us view them with. But
I just found it funny because as a rock and roller, wading into that whole thing, a couple of years into it, I'm like, well, wait a second. Now you're calling this band Alice in Chains.
That's heavy.
This is like some of the heaviest stuff on the universe right now.
Yeah.
And how can that be grunge? That doesn't. I don't know. Was it angst? I'll never understand that. So when you were writing at that time, reviewing things, did it feel like there was a seismic shift in rock music? Did you feel it? Did the audiences that you observed in these shows was it different?
I thought it got oversaturated. There was a time where, and I like some songs by Bush, but there was a time they had like 5 songs in rotation, it seemed, on the radio. And
right.
I remember interviewing one of the clerks at the time, like, why, we can't get a song on 105.9 The X, but they're playing, or whatever the Revolution used to be, the alternative rock station too, 104.
Yeah.
So I think we got too much of it thrown at us, but there were bands like the Screaming Trees I liked, and they were allowed to have one hit, and then they were kind of pushed aside. And So I've always wondered if I should go back and look at some of the other bands that are out there. Maybe there's some hidden gems there that I didn't appreciate.
The grunge era was just such a strange time.
It was a little bit forced on us, I thought.
I thought it was too.
Yeah,
I thought it was too.
And then we came out with post-grunge. And
what was that?
Nickelback, post-grunge.
New metal. Remember new metal? I was right around that time too, like Korn and Limp Bizkit and stuff like that. I mean,
my computer wouldn't let me make that little punctuation mark above the U. I don't know how they did that, but... Yeah, like Limp Bizkit Nookie. That's like a punchline now, but it's kind of a catchy song.
No doubt about it.
I think it'll come back.
But I appreciate this. Did you have fun?
Oh yeah, big time, man.
Yeah,
I mean, this is everything grade A from the decorations you have here to the quality of the sound and everything. And
thank you. Yeah, we're trying to do it right, just having fun, man, and it means a lot to me that you came in.
It's great that there are people like you that have such a passion for music that you're devoting this much time and energy to.
Absolutely, yeah. I just I think that the narrative in the story of this town too, like I have always, since you came on my radar long before I ever met you. You have the job I probably always wanted as a kid. I wanted to be writing and immersed in music, especially local music. I mean, it's got to. Do you ever pinch yourself? You ever look back and go, like, wow, this is what I do for a living?
Yeah, I've been going through some old clips lately because I'm trying to downsize and I'm discovering articles I totally forgot, and I'm thinking, oh man, that. But I don't want to turn into the person like it was so much better. When Red was a nickel and movies were a quarter back in 1999, it was better than. In many ways, it was, but I'm still passionate about it now. I'm not trying to get too lost in the nostalgia of it. Is
there material there for like a book of some kind? Have you ever thought about that?
I'm kicking myself. I always wanted to write the definitive book on progressive rock, and I've interviewed so many of the members of it, and I would always ask them a question about it. I should have compiled those into one. I would need to spend like a couple months in London though, and I know you have lived, so I think you'd almost have to be over there to get the full.
I think I get that. I totally get that.
Because to me, it wasn't just now. It's starting to get like artistic credibility by like the Rolling Stone magazines, those kind of people. For years, everyone slogged off progressive rock. You know what I mean? It was
right.
And now people are finally realizing it's genius.
It's genius. That's it. It's genius. And when oh my gosh, it's funny you said that. I was just having this discussion. Like, we took for granted all the things we were hearing and absorbing, but man, as you get older and you reflect on the complexity of some of this stuff, these were musicians.
Right.
This wasn't three guys in their garage.
Virtuoso musicians.
Yeah, real. I mean, and I'm not saying one's better than the other. The garage band or progressive. It isn't right or wrong or good or bad. It's just different. But this whole genre required a hell of a lot of effort. These folks, like John Petrucci, is whether you like Dream Theater or not, it's just an amazing orchestrative effort. And if you can't appreciate that, then you're really, how immersed in the idea of music are you really?
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a weird way of putting it, but yeah, dude, I'd love for you to come back. This was time well spent on my behalf, and one of the shows I was really looking forward to, man. I hope I didn't keep you too long.
No, let's do it once the shows come back. Maybe hopefully late summer, early fall. Let's kind of
love to.
We'll be able to talk about, hey, next Thursday I'm going to see Rage or something.
I hope. Keep wearing your mask. Help. Let's help us get back to music, right? Let's get back to live music in Pittsburgh.
I thoroughly agree.
All right, right on. Thanks, buddy.
Keep up the
I
good
appreciate it. All right, friends, we are out.
Hello, you're listening to the Eric McKenna Project.